Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Musings with Yo-Yo. Today, I am here with my guest, Robyn Ludi. She used to be my supervisor. I guess I started already telling you how we know each other. So regardless, we'll talk about it still. And I'm excited to have you. You live in Vancouver, and we usually do check-ins anyway. So this is another check-in that we're having, and I wanted to have you on as a guest, one, because I look to you a lot as a mentor. And I don't know if you know this, but I truly, truly look to you a lot as a mentor. And when I think about my career and just life goals, you stand out to me. So I'm excited to have you on. How are you doing, Robyn?
I am good. I'm very excited to be here and a little bit nervous and honored to be considered one of your many mentors in your books. And I'm good. How are you, Yo-Yo?
I'm doing good. This is week 3 in Toronto. I got here early August. So I'm doing good, adjusting to Toronto little by little. I have a funny story for you. I want to hear your reactions live. That's why I didn't tell you this before. But it's not that intense. Don't worry about it. So last week I got a UTI. And I've had it before. I remember the first time I ever had it when I worked at like Target, and I've like worked 10 to 12 hours in a stretch and just like not take care of myself. Anyway, I thought for sure I was going to have it on the road trip, because I was like, when you travel and all this kind of stuff, there's many reasons why you have it. Anyway, randomly had it last week. And I was like, you know what? I know what this is. This is the most uncomfortable thing. I was in a meet. Okay. Did you hear that large honk? I get it. I was in a meeting. I had to pee like 3 times in that meeting. So I was like, okay, time for me to try to figure out this doctor situation. Cranberry juice is not going to work. So I started off trying to get to a walk-in clinic, but because of COVID, you can't walk into clinics. You have to book appointments, things like that. So I was like, okay, I'll try to find a walk-in clinic that I can book an appointment, try to get a virtual session or whatever it is. And then eventually I found this thing called telehealth, called them. So this is probably like 2 hours into me trying to figure out what to do, because there was nowhere really I could go. And I don't know what it is in the Toronto air. This is probably the worst UTI I've ever had. And called them, and then she was like, oh, okay, I'll give you this number. Call them. They don't take BC health cards for some reason. And I have not gotten my Ontario health card.
No.
Yeah, so then I just didn't know what to do. Will and I had an argument the night before, so I didn't want to ask him for help. But then I got to the point where I was like, I really need help.
Yo-Yo. So I can do it on my own.
So petty. So I was like, okay, at this point, my body is not interested in this argument. So I messaged Will, and then he helped me find another place where they do take a BC health card. So anyway, I call them. Perfect. She asked me all the questions, blah, blah, blah. And then there's a pharmacy right by my house. So she faxed it over there, or said they were going to fax the prescription over there. So I was like, okay, perfect. I'll go in like an hour, because I know sometimes it takes a while for prescriptions to get ready. And then, so in an hour, got ready to go. And I started walking down like just the hall of the apartment. I was like, I need to go back and pee. So I was like, okay, run back, go pee. Turns out I locked myself out of the apartment.
Oh,
yeah. Locked myself out of the apartment. I didn't know how else to get in. I only have the one set of keys. So I'm going to make another set, lesson number 1. And so locked myself out, and I was like, I don't know. I'm crying at this point. I don't know what to do.
What did you do?
So eventually I walked out, and luckily, I'm one of those people who can make friends with anybody, and I had already made friends with some people in the building, and literally walked outside, and one of them was outside barbecuing. So I was like, I'm going to need help. I know that one of the windows in the apartment is open.
Oh my God.
So I was like, I need you. And this is second floor apartment. I'm wearing a dress. Like, it's just like not a good situation. Second floor apartment. I was like, I'm going to climb into this window, and I need you to help me hold this chair while I go in. Get there. Oh my, I'm so glad that I bumped into her. Get there, jump into the window somehow. She's like, just jump in, girl. Just jump in. I was like, I can't, like, it's not a basketball shot. Like, if I jump in and miss, like, I'm falling down 2 floors. Eventually made it. The good thing about being 6 feet tall is that my arms can reach things. And like, I was like, I've been working on my arm strength, so we're going to work on this. Pulled myself in. It was a whole thing. Yeah. And then finally made it in. I have never locked myself out of the apartment since then. eventually got to the pharmacist, or to the pharmacy. They hadn't sent in the fax for my prescription.
This is like a nightmare.
It was awful. In the moment, I was like, are you serious? Like, everything that could go wrong right now is going wrong. They hadn't sent in the fax. Eventually called the place to send it in. In that time I was there, I was like, I need to, like, you don't understand. I'm going to need to pee like 5 times while I'm here. She's like, it's okay. I understand. Feel free to use it. It's very clean. Nobody uses this washroom. People aren't allowed, but I understand. I'll let you use it. Eventually got my prescription. It was awesome when I finally got it. But the whole process, I was just like, why is everything not working out today? I was very upset and I was crying the whole time. It was not a fun situation.
What was the universe trying to teach you in that moment, Yo-Yo? Let's think about that.
What was it trying to teach me? I don't know. Welcome to Toronto? I don't know. Maybe it's teaching me to like apply for my Ontario health card or something. I don't know. One thing I did find though is that the healthcare professionals here are very non-judgmental. Yeah, they were very, I remember that first time I got my UTI at Target, it was just like, they just assumed I was being careless or something. I don't know what it was. And this is the first time I've had healthcare professionals treat me that way. I was very impressed with that.
That's good.
Yeah, so that's been my first few weeks in Toronto. Adjustment.
That was a nice opening story.
It was a nice story. It could honestly be a sitcom episode, like just everything that goes wrong.
At every turn, something goes wrong.
Honestly, yeah. Even like when I was crossing the street waiting for the light to turn red for the cars, I'm like, this is the longest green light the cars have ever had. Like, I just want to cross the street. Anyway, I made it through. I'm here. I'm happy. I'm living. But
you're on your drugs. You feel better. You're not peeing.
Feel much better. So much better. Okay, so now that I've told everybody about my life, how do we know each other, Robyn?
Well, Yo-Yo, we know each other in the summer of 2016. I started a new job at UBC, and unfortunately, I didn't hire you. So that's one of the things that is sad for me, but we got to know it. I think you had started a few months before me.
Yeah, probably like 2 months
before me. Mm-hmm. So you were part of the team that I was working with, and I believe that was the day you got your you took your Canadian citizenship test, right? Not the day, but I remember that was really soon after I started, and I think I had put a Canadian flag on your desk and a little hat or something like that.
Yeah,
anyway,
Canadian pin.
Yes. Anyway, we know each other from our work at UBC together.
Yeah, so you were my supervisor for 2 years, and now we're friends and colleagues and all of that. And we were on the same team that won the 2018 UBC Staff and Faculty Sports Day, if anybody needs to know.
Whoa, stats. Well. Like, let's just keep that. I can't even tell you what year it was, but yeah.
I'm guessing 2018. I think that was the year. Or 2017, one of those 2 years.
Yeah, was it definitely in between my children. So yeah, that was hilarious. That was the funniest. Are we competitive or we're competitive? And I'd thrown my back out and was like, yeah, I'm just going to I'll do the easier activities. And then that last inflatable castle, I was like, get out of the way. And pulled through.
We have to win this thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Kim was like, isn't your back out? Like, what are you doing? Anyway, that was, letting you really see true personalities and attributes really shine through with your colleagues when you put them in a competitive environment. Anyway, that was really fun.
Mm-hmm. And we won. It was fantastic. So,
and we won.
Everything. The most important part, we won.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as you said, we know each other from a work context. You're probably actually one of the hardest workers I know, and super ambitious too. I remember when you first started and you had our team retreat, and we're gonna do all these things. In my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna do what? Like, this is an ambitious goal. Like, I'm here for it, but I don't know how I would. I don't know if I would, if I assume we will achieve this. And we actually achieved quite a lot of the goals that you had and more. So you've also been a very good leader and driver. I don't know. Do you consider yourself ambitious? Do you describe yourself as that?
I don't think I've ever used that word to describe my own self, but lots of people I know and respect around me have used that word to describe me. I'm not sure why I don't have a connection to that word. I think I probably have more of a connection to drive. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why, but I think that I drive for more and better. And I think a few of my values that are at the top of my list are challenge and possibility. And so I think those two values really push me to be better and do better. And a lot of it is individual. Like I'm very individually, internally motivated. And I've worked over the years to try to influence those around me to come along for the ride. I'm not sure. I mean, you came along with me, so I could say that, okay, I'm working on that. But yeah, I don't think ambition, I don't have that strong of a connection to the word, but I think drive. Yeah.
When you think of the word ambitious, what do you think of, and why do you? So when I never described myself as ambitious. I think we read a book, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But until I read that book, I would never have described myself as ambitious, probably not even driven. So why do you think the word ambition throws you off a little bit?
I'm not sure, but the question that you had originally asked, what do you think of when you think about the word ambitious? And I'm big on intuition, right? So my gut immediately when you said, what do you think of when you think of the word ambitious? I think about a white woman in a power suit.
True.
And so I don't wear power suits. I am a white woman. But I think about the rat race, like I think about the climbing the proverbial career ladder. I think about the grind. I think about, I don't know. And I think maybe for me, what the difference for me internally between ambition and drive, and I have no explanation for this. Drive for me is like, I'm internally motivated. And for me, my professional self and my personal self are very much intertwined, and for better or for worse. And I think when you find a professional role or position that you really believe in and can see value in the work, it doesn't become like, I'm not motivated by the titles or the salary. And when you find and connect with a job or career path that is really intertwined and connected to your own internal values, I think that it shifts a little bit. It's not always about the proverbial climbing the proverbial ladder. It's about doing better and advancing the work. And I think that's what drives me. When I think ambition, I think of the the hamster wheel and what's the next step? And then I'm a director, associate, and then I'm associate director, but you know what I mean?
It's like never enough. You're just always going to something else. Gotcha. I agree with that. I agree with that notion, or the idea of just driving to be better or be driven and things like that. I was actually going to ask you what drives you, so you kind of answered that. But like I was saying, I consider you a very hard worker. I think you usually stand out as being hardworking. Have you always noticed that you were probably one of the most hardworking in a room? And what was that like when you eventually realized that?
That's a very interesting question. Okay. I think, as a kid, my parents were very much like, okay, try anything you want, right? Like, you want to try Girl Guides, you want to try ballet, you want to try whatever, do everything, experience everything, and then decide which things that you really want to work hard and get better in. And I guess, ballet was the one thing that I started really early as a kid. So 3, the Mommy and Me classes and blah, blah, blah. And then I guess around grade 7, so junior high school, I went to school in Ontario. So we had grade 6, and then we had grade 7 and 8, and then 9 to, I did OAC in Ontario.
What's OAC?
Grade 13.
Okay.
Got rid of it now. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Podcast could be entirely about that and the education system, but it's not. So it was probably around that time, grade 7. I don't know how old I was, I guess. Is that 14 or 13 or something like that? when I really started to put a lot more time into ballet. And I started to take double classes. So I skipped grades because I was doing my Royal Academy of Dance RAD training. And I skipped a grade and really and I could just see myself getting so much better. But I knew that I was getting better because I was working hard. Like I was in the studio all the time. And I guess that's kind of when I noticed, and I started, the friends that I'd had along the way, I didn't have anymore because I had skipped a grade and kept moving ahead. And I guess that's when I kind of noticed, like, okay, like this is different than what everyone else is doing. Like I am working and pushing myself, and I enjoyed it to a point. Now I quit when I was just before I ended high school for a whole series of reasons. But then, you know, when I think back about my childhood too, I was always a really studious student, probably mostly in high school, less so in elementary and junior high, but I really worked hard at school, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed some subjects better than others, but I got really good grades. I was a keen student, but I didn't utilize in class time. I was a very social student, talked too much. I was a student with a desk in the hallway because I talked too much.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I always got good grades. So teachers had this love-hate relationship with me. But going back to the point of your question, I don't think I'm brilliant or that smart. I just worked really hard to get good grades. I remember calculus isn't something that comes naturally to me, but I wanted to be good at it. So I took the extra, always went to my math teacher's office hours. He came over, this is terrible. He was one of my mentors. Unfortunately, he passed now, but he's one of my mentors, Mr. Stickney. And I guess he saw that I was working really hard. And so he put the effort in me and helping me because I was working and doing what he was asking. And I remember we developed a closer relationship, and I was always in his office and, was labeled a nerd by my peers because of it. I mean, there were other reasons, but that was one of them. Anyway, he had come over for dinner one night.
Oh, wow. Like that much help.
Yeah, like that much help. I ended up getting, I think I got 93 or 94 in calculus. Anyway, and I continued taking finite and algebra and trig and stuff like that. Anyway, yeah, going back to your question, I guess, I started realizing ballet when I sort of started skipping grades and started doing really well and competing. I started realizing, okay, I have the work ethic to really push myself. And then, in math and calculus, I can also use that same and apply that same work ethic to get better. So I guess that's kind of when I kind of realized.
Yeah. You talking about actually being hardworking and just wanting to be good at something. I don't know if you've ever, if you read Becoming by Michelle Obama, but she talks a lot about how her brother was naturally gifted in everything. And she's like, I had to work extra hard for all this stuff. It kind of sounds very similar.
Oh,
yeah.
I think of myself now
you are Michelle and she is you. I always think about myself as her. One of the things you said, though, was that you found that you, as you were skipping grades or doing things like that, you were leaving some of the friends that you had and you were getting new friends that weren't coming along or things like that. Have you ever felt bad for being that driven?
I don't think I've felt bad, but it's been hard. I think, too, in my professional life, I have received a few internal promotions where I have been promoted and still maintained the same peer group professionally. And that's been challenging, navigating and reestablishing relationships in a different position. Right. When you have a position of power, when you didn't before that has been challenging. And you get labeled as, a goody, a keener, golden child, all of these terms. So I think I've never felt bad, but there's been challenges that have been associated with being driven. And I've learned so much through those challenges, though. They've taught me a lot. So
how do you navigate those challenges? Or how did you navigate those challenges when they first came up?
A lot of the challenges are interpersonal. And so I relied, I work on my people skills, right? I'm not socially inclined or in tune to, interpersonal dynamics. But when those challenges have arisen, I've leveraged individual relationships with people that I respect. And I'm way better one-on-one than it depends. But I think that I'm more comfortable one-on-one, sort of unpacking difficult situations or challenges. So, and I'm not afraid of conflict. I'd much rather deal with it head on and talk about the difficult things than sort of skip around it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's been my strategy. I've sort of connected where appropriate with people to say, like, hey, like, this feels weird. Yeah. Let's talk about it. And sometimes it's gone well and sometimes it hasn't. But I think that there hasn't been a professional relationship that I've wanted to keep that I haven't kept at this point. Yeah.
That's really good. That's really good. And I think the focus on also just seeing the individuals too, beyond just the fact that, like, now I have this higher power job or whatever, like, you're still, like, there's the individual that's you beyond that. And I sometimes will find that with colleagues, they'll look at you as just that, kind of like your colleague, that's your identity, and they don't maybe think about you as holistically of a person. So for example, like, I don't think I've even ever asked you how you met Josh or things like that. Like, like you are a mom and your wife and all these kind of things. So sometimes it's harder to see the holistic person and how it all intertwines. That's a good point. And then one of the things you were also saying earlier was you find that your personal and your professional life overlap quite a fair bit. And it makes me think about this book we read called Ambition Decisions. And for context, yes, hold it up, Robyn, because of course you are always prepared. I told you I would talk about this and you brought it.
Just in case, I wanted to have it.
Just in case, yeah. So you can flip through the pages. We never actually did a proper debrief or a book club type of debrief on it. But for context, Ambition Decisions is a book written by these two authors who went to Northwestern University. So there is very much a lot of privilege in the lens. Northwestern is a highly reputable school, that kind of stuff. So a lot of the people they have interviewed for this book are people who were kind of predestined to have success in their careers anyway. But essentially, they interviewed some of their colleagues or some of their peers when they're in university to see how far they've come in their careers. I think it was like 20 or 10 years after graduation. And they had different groups. So there were the groups of those who were super ambitious people. There were the groups of those who were kind of like flexor between ambition and not. And then there were those who they would describe as fully focused on like their personal lives and not necessarily careers ambition. That's my summary of it. And they go over things like how they manage the day to day. So for example, if they're with a spouse who's also super ambitious, or if they're with a spouse who is similar to them, or they even highlighted some of their peers who were breadwinning women, which is, again, as much as we talk about gender equality and stuff like that, we are far away from that in the world that we're in, or people just don't talk about it as much. So I found it interesting. Anyway, I have talked a lot. This is my interview with you. So I know we briefly shared
Yoyo's musings on herself.
Yoyo's musings on herself. Yeah, her own opinions. But I know we briefly talked about it, but are there parts in the book that really stood out to be absolutely true for you in your life, in your day-to-day?
I mean, I think these books are always, I think we did talk a little bit about this. I thought it was an interesting book because it sort of highlights different concepts or topics and different perspectives. And as you mentioned, not a very diverse set of perspectives on this, but it highlights one set of perspectives. And I find it, when you take a concept that's very complex, such as ambition and the decisions, in this case, women make in their career and life, and simplify it into these buckets of flex lifer and all these things. You know, you simplify it for understanding, and I get the author's decision to do that, right, to bring folks into the conversation. And I think these kind of books, there's not ever, you're not like, yes, everything, but there are some things that make you go, didn't I think about that, or what do I think about that, and that's interesting. And so I think for me, my biggest sort of musing, if you will, from the book and the research that was done was, I've never really thought about ambition shared within a family, and whether or not, you know, you internalize things to make sense of them first, right? So I immediately think of my relationship with my partner, Josh. And I would say, you know, both of us are very driven to be successful in our respective fields and careers. And I don't really think this has, no, I read this when I had one child, I think, not two. And so I don't think I'd really noticed the toll that having two driven adults in a family can have. And I've definitely now, you know, my youngest is 2 and a bit, and I'm seeing that strain now. That could be COVID and the pandemic that we're in, but I do think that there are trade-offs, as you know, Josh and I have been together since 2004, 5, a long time anyway. Yeah. We've navigated, right? Like, he graduated before I did and then had a startup. He started working before me and then left that company and pursued his own business and launched his own business. And we have kind of traded off. And then I taught right after graduating in the school system, and then came to UBC. And then when I did my master's degree, like, we were always trading off. But what's interesting is that when we brought children into the equation, then I started to see okay, you know, the unarticulate, what is the word? I'm not unarticulated, but sort of the emotional labor that often women have to take on with respect to children in the home. Some of the work isn't always stated, right? And so you know, you work your 9 to 5, and I have a consulting or, you know, company on the side. So I have my side hustle, and then I have the responsibilities that I have as a mother, and sort of, you know, the responsibilities that I have as a wife kind of are like, okay, right, where are those, and where are the responsibilities of myself? And they kind of all get lost in this equation. And when you have an identity that is so connected to a professional self-concept, it becomes a bit more challenging, because then what does success look like? And then you start thinking like, okay, well, my success in my job doesn't equate to my success at home and success as a wife and a mom. And so you have to like renegotiate all these sort of self-concepts. And I've done it where I've compartmentalized all those, like, what does success as a professional look like, and as me, and as a wife, and as a mom. And it's really hard. And I don't think you can't compartmentalize yourself. You know, you know, you and I in our work, you know, talk a lot about intersectionality. And so you have to kind of renegotiate what success in life looks like. And I don't think that's consistent throughout life. It changes, you know, we continually evolve as human beings. We're always in a state of becoming in the world. And I think you always have to renegotiate what success looks like for you. And frankly, what success looks like for you and your partner. If you have a partner together, you and your kids need to like talk about, what does success in our home look like? You know?
Yeah. Do you talk to the kids about? No, I love it. I love it. I have like several things. Do you talk to the kids about what success in the home looks like?
You know what? No, I haven't. So, you know, as I was saying that to him, I was like, man, I can write this down, because there's stuff that I need to be doing
for myself. Yeah.
I have a former colleague and a friend who actually, I know a few people who do this. They put up their family values in the home. So it's like, you know, these, as a family, these are the values that we subscribe to or whatever. I would think that that's something that I would like to do. I think this next thing I was going to say is kind of like, you know, it's excusing or defending the fact that I haven't yet. But I would like to have those conversations when my kids are old enough to say what, they're able to contribute to the conversation.
Right.
But we say things loosely like, we don't wear hats at the dinner table. Like that's really simple. Like we don't speak with our mouth full. We don't push or shove. We ask nicely. We say, those kind of things we haven't actually had. And those are my concepts of what a family looks like, not my children's. So that's not really, as I'm saying that, I'm like, that's not really fair. Like, what are there? I don't know. It's a really good point. I should, there's my homework from today's conversation.
I can't imagine what that, like, for them to, like, we value having dessert after dinner or whatever. You never know what that's going to look like, right? But, like, having it be an ongoing conversation. And even what you were talking about with the ups and downs that might come with a partner. So, for example, the different kinds of job changes or things like that. My aunt recently actually texted me about just even just the differences between when she's a breadwinner versus he's the breadwinner versus when this person is like just the not, like, how do you adapt to that, and being flexible with that, and talking about, I think for me, talking about it is probably one of the things people don't do, is like they'll never admit that, for example, they make more than their spouse. And this is women most times. And when they make more than their heterosexual spouse. I don't know why, but those are some of the things that have come up, or that came up for me when I was reading the book too. So the importance of navigating that.
Yeah, communication is a really big thing. And you think you have to have humility and courage in those conversations to have them, because they're not light or easy. I mean, I'm assuming they can be, but I think that Josh and I have a pretty solid foundation. We've been together for a very long time and have seen ourselves through multiple iterations of who we are and who we want to be in the world. And yeah, I mean, we still have communication challenges, and this whole idea of ambition and who has it. I think both partners in a family can step into that ambition, but the how much varies. I think both partners, I mean, speaking for Josh and myself, I think we're both very driven, but our drive has changed and it fluctuates over time. And I think that comes with professional stability as well.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, like, I think that my drive sometimes changes when I see potential and I'm going for something in either my job or the next role or whatever. And then I push harder, I work harder. And I need Josh to, like, sort of support me and help me stay there. Whereas I think other times where I've been, like, fully fulfilled in my job, to be like, okay, I'm still pushing, I'm still driving for better in this role, but I'm not seeing the next thing, right? And so sort of that's maybe stability is not the right word, but that consistent fulfillment. Like, I'm good, I like this job, it's fulfilling, I'm given autonomy and agency in my work, and that's important to me, and I'm good for right now. And then Josh has kind of accelerated or occupied more of that drive space. And I've supported him during those times. But it's an interesting notion that you can't have both. You can't have it all.
Yeah.
And I think what has happened, or what can happen sometimes, I mean, money and communication are two pretty important parts of a relationship.
As they say, money is the number one cause of divorce, which for me, I just think it's communication about money that's the number one cause of divorce. But again,
100%. 100%. And it's always a bit of you always go into I grew up in a household that nobody talks about money, no one talks about politics, the end. And so for me, always going into those conversations, I'm always like, like this. And so I have to, like, be aware, okay, this is just like an open conversation, it's fine. But the notion of, like, who makes more, and just because someone makes more doesn't mean everything then needs to revolve around their schedule and their priorities. It just, again, the conversation around I guess that level of drive that they're at, right? And Josh and I always have a conversation around the next thing, right? And if I was stepping into a space where, like, okay, I see there's this new job. I want to get it. I want to
Yeah.
I'm going to go. Right. And he's like, okay. So he's going to not cool it, but he's like, okay, I got you. And that will allow me to get to my next thing. And then vice versa. Right. We've kind of, continually done this over the like 15 years that we've been together. So I don't think any one person in a partnership needs to hold that space all the time. I think it's a trade-off.
Mm-hmm. And even just, so one thing I just noticed you said is you're saying if you, for example, wanted to go for the next step or next thing, and Josh said, okay, what can I do? And you were going to say to cool it, but then you stopped yourself from saying that. And I think one of the things that causes that, and this is like not a therapy session at all, but like one of the things that a lot of times people will do is they don't want to, and maybe this is gender, like if a woman had said, I will cool it, there's no justification that goes along with that. And I noticed that you justified, like he's not going to cool it, he's just going to support me. And I think that's because there's so much identity put into like, you know, drive. And by drive, I mean money. For some reason, people value the money you make as your drive. And so if you're cooling it, that means you're not driven. And I noticed that was something you did here. And the point you were talking about too, like who makes the most is, I mean, you just spend all the attention there. They don't hold the power. It's what you negotiate, or it's what the industry looks like, or things like that. But I noticed that you did that. So I was like, interesting. Because I don't know if that would be the case if it was a reverse gender partner.
Interesting. And I did catch myself when I said cool it, because I didn't, it's not that I would say, okay, stop being driven. But in terms of what he was wanting to do professionally in his field, we both couldn't be like striving for the next huge thing at the same time. And that striving for the next big thing, I said role. So interesting for me, like I said role, but it could be launching a new, I don't know, like it could be, I want to really, for Josh, I really want to secure this partnership with Ladner Lacrosse or whatever, right? Like, whatever the next big thing looks like, we both can't be reaching for that at the same time, because our familial life and responsibilities will suffer as a result.
Right.
And so, you know, COVID is a perfect example. I'm so grateful, and it has been very challenging, but Josh has been, we didn't lose childcare, but we pulled our children out of childcare, and Josh has been on the CERB, and he's been our primary caregiver with the children every day for the last, like 7 months. And I've had to work, which has been interesting because being at home, sorry, this is a complete tangent. But
I love it. Please go on the tangents. I was going to ask you about COVID-19 anyway, so please go on the tangents. I'm here for it.
Okay. Being a woman working at home, my job is to work. And yet I am constantly torn when I'm at home and the kids are at home that I should be helping. That I should be helping prep lunch. If I hear screaming, I'm running down, being like, is the kids okay? But Josh is there. Yeah. And that's his responsibility. My job is to work, and his job is to take care. He's the caregiver of our children.
Yeah.
And that's hard because you're at home too. And like, oh my gosh, I should be folding laundry and like this. And like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at the dust on my, you know, all these things. And so you're, again, like having to, all of the different roles right now are all messed around, because at least when I went to work, I am there to work. I can compartmentalize that part of my life. That's my role and responsibility for those hours. And then I go pick my children up from childcare and drive them home, feed dinner, blah, blah, blah. Right. But it's been really interesting to have all of those roles situated in the same physical space. And end of rant.
It's not a rant, it's a tangent. I love it. And even like I was gonna ask you anyway, so I'll ask you, with like the impacts of COVID on the way we work, really. Like work is now very much close to our home lives, way more than before. Even though I thought people generally had work close to their home lives, they didn't realize it, but now it's just obviously in your home life. Have they changed, or has the impacts of COVID, being home, working from home, all of that changed even your view of the world of work, or your approach to work, or what you want to even stay in the world of work when we get a vaccine? That was a lot of questions at once.
That was a lot of questions.
Sorry. That's the way I ask them.
Okay, I will use the social change model to answer that question.
Okay.
So myself, my self, conceptualization of the world of work and how I like to work. I don't mind not commuting. If my children weren't up in my workspace, I think I would enjoy it more. And I am in the office, periodically, when I have, 7 hours of Zoom meetings or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like, HR conversations, like going to the office for some dedicated space. I really do like working in a separate space. I don't mind not commuting, but I do like that sort of separation, which is interesting because in first year, when I had to live in residence at university, the minute I could get out of residence, I did. I think I need that separation to help me disconnect my, when you're a student too, your academic priorities and your personal priorities.
Yeah.
I didn't have a life in residence. All I did was study. In my first year, I had my highest GPA. In my academic career, highest GPA in first year. What? Nobody has that.
I had that, but by luck, honestly, because I did not study that hard. None of that. I was in Oklahoma,
I hate people like
at
you.
that point. I don't know how it happened, Robyn. I got a 4.0 GPA in my first year of university.
Wow.
And I tell you, I had never pulled more all-nighters than ever before. And it was mainly because I prioritized my social life over my academic life. I think also just going to the British system, A-levels really sets you up for North American education.
Yeah.
Side note, but then it went downhill after that.
Mine did too. Mine did too, as I was like, oh, I can get involved in athletics and rec.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, look at all these social things and all these people here. I kind of pulled my head up out of the sand and was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So yes, going back to the world of work and my self-understanding of that, I do like working somewhere that isn't in my home space. In terms of sort of our concept of the world of work, I think working in a post-secondary institution, this has rapidly accelerated what's possible. I think we're seeing in our work greater access to our services and programs. The amount of students who are accessing our workshops, let's say, accessing our resources has exponentially increased. And so what does this say about, our transition to digital? I think education has been slow to do this, and COVID has demanded an accelerated transition, and some transitions have been better and smoother than others. But I think there's huge opportunity in the transition to digital learning and digital learning environments. And I think we need to step into that space and become more digitally literate and enhance our understanding of digital pedagogies and what does, learning and learning engagement look like online. I think those are all the things that there are niche areas that do know a lot about that, but we all need to be stepping into that space. And what does inclusive learning environments look like? All these conversations around time zones and access and closed captioning, all of those things. This is a different world for us in the education sector. I think lots of different organizations have been on the trend of flexible work environments, remote working, setting up different types of platforms and things like that prior to COVID. But I think large publicly funded research institutions, that's a huge undertaking. So I just think this has lit the fire and been like, okay, we have to go. We have to meet the world where it's going. And we're in the fourth industrial revolution, and we need to catch up and help prepare students to navigate the world of work in this new way. And so self, other, and the next one is community and society and social change model. And I think, thinking about this as the fourth industrial revolution, I mean, this was pre-COVID when people were talking about, what is the term?
The digital, are you talking about okay, there's this one video we watched at work one time where it's it's coming and you need to have human skills and digital blah, blah, blah. It's kind of scary, but is that what you're talking about? Digital?
There's, hang on. Okay. I know this is, people are looking at us and waiting for something, but I have to Google something here. Hang on.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
While you're Googling it, while you're Googling, one of the things that I've noticed quite a lot with the change of pace with just life is, and maybe because this is during summertime, but like one of the things I've noticed a lot more is like around 5 o'clock-ish when people would have been commuting, you see a lot more like families just being in the park. And maybe it's people who are tired of staring at screens, or maybe they have freer time, but there's a lot more of that. Like, I can't imagine like the amount of time you get back from maybe like 2 hours of commuting, and you get to either spend that with family or do all these things that you would have done for your own self-care. I don't want that to go away. Like, that's one thing I definitely want to stay.
Yeah. And that's, a really good point. COVID, Josh and I, at probably one of the like low points in COVID, we were talking, and Josh is forever the optimist. I'm always the pessimist, and the sort of, I like to reframe that as a realist, but
yeah. Pessimist realist.
My perception of what's real, right? So we were saying, this is probably the most time him and I have ever spent together in life, like in it together, processing, working alongside each other. And the most time we've spent with our kids, like both of us are working, and really I saw my kids on the commute to drop them off at daycare, pick them up, take them home, feed them, bath them. And then I saw them on weekends. Like, this is the most time that I've spent with them, for better or worse.
So get us out of here now.
So that is like, you're right. It is, I always struggle to see the positives and the silver linings sometimes. And that is definitely one of them. Watching my youngest daughter find her words, and I wouldn't have got to watch that. So that's been really nice. So that prioritization of personal responsibilities, home life, that's been really nice. And honestly, our weekends, everyone always asks me, what do you do on the weekends? I'm like, nothing, because the work week is so hectic that we just go to the beach and sit. And actually that's really nice, because normally on the weekends, be like, okay, swimming, dance, like all these things, our kids have to be, overscheduled. And I'm like, well, I'm subscribing to the same life that I had, and that's not necessarily what I want for my kids.
Right.
Anyway, I looked up this thing.
Yes.
It's a VUCA world, VUCA, and it's validity, uncertainty, complexity, and and that's the term VUCA that is talked about this new idea of the world of work, that it is volatile, certain, complex, and ambiguous. And so those are all the things that have happened since COVID. And so I would say that the world of work is becoming a VUCA world. And how do we navigate that? We've had to. So what have we learned? I think that's the next thing for COVID too, is like, for organizations and for us, what have we learned from this? And it's not over by any means, but what have we learned that we can articulate for ourselves and continue to build on and enhance and streamline as we move forward? Because this is not going to be an experience that's just like, yeah, we did it, next. No. This is like, if we are going to continually evolve and leverage what has happened, we need to stop and think about it and articulate what we've learned and how to continue to. This is me and challenge and possibility, right? Even in this minute. Like, okay, what did we learn from it? Let's take it. Right?
Yeah, and everything can't go back to normal, air quotes. Adjusting accordingly, so you're not just running back to what was you knew before. Yeah. Would you? I know that we have very little time left. But would you do anything? And so just even thinking about just where you started off in career and drive, and just seeing how you've grown over time, and then where you are now in your career, would you do anything different in your career journey? Is there anything you wish you had known that you know now that you would want to look at in terms of your holistic career?
Sorry, I'm thinking, because I don't, I've asked that question to
Did everything right? Okay, we get it.
I don't think that I've asked that question to lots of people, and I don't think I've ever answered it myself. What I will say is, if I had to describe my sort of pathway to where I am now, I've been an opportunist. So opportunities have arose that I would have expected. I didn't expect to leave the K to 12 system and come to UBC.
Right.
But opportunity arose and I took it. I was like, sure. I didn't expect to stay at UBC for longer than 4 years. And here I am on year 11. Which is, like, I'm like, you know, and I feel like both like excited, but then I'm like, oh my God, I need to get out. Like, I feel like, and I don't know where that comes from. So let's like
separate session.
A second. Yeah. I'll schedule a coaching session after to unpack that.
I got you.
But I think, I've taken opportunities as they've come up, and I've just been like, okay, sure. And each opportunity has kind of taken me on a slightly different path than I originally expected. But the question that you asked, I don't think I would change anything. And I don't think, if I knew some of the things I know now at the beginning, that would totally change the trajectory again. So I think that, I don't think I would change anything. And I don't think everything that I've done has been right, but it's been what has been presented to me and I chose it. I have the privilege to choose the next thing that has come up. And I recognize that. And I'm very grateful for all of those opportunities. And I wouldn't be here without all of them. And each one of them took me on a different kind of trajectory that taught me new things about myself and work and career and what I want to do in the world. And I'm just, you know, I don't often have the time to like think and appreciate about where I've been and how I've gotten to where I am. And I'm very, very grateful for the people who have supported me in my career and to date, and the opportunities that I have had. And I just continue to learn, and I'm excited for whatever's next. And I don't know whatever's next. I don't have that. Like, this is the next thing. I'm not, okay, no, I don't need to be a director and a VP and all the things. Like, I don't have that necessarily. I think I would like to if they came up.
Yeah, like, who's going to say no to that?
Right. Yeah, sure, I'll do that. Yeah. But if I think about what's brought me here, has been an unexpected opportunity that I've been like, okay, sure. Yeah. And so part of me is just like, just wait. It'll be okay. And you don't need to. Sometimes I get lost in that sort of the grind about what ambition, like the white woman in the power suit. I kind of get lost in that. Sometimes I'm like, well, wait, why am I, who put this on me? Or why am I falling into that pattern again? Because that's not what that hasn't been my path so far. So
that's a very good point.
Yeah. Why am I all of a sudden feeling the need to like, the thing? I'm falling into like the shooting on myself kind of pattern, which that hasn't been what's brought me to this place. So why am I all of a sudden feeling the need to like, and then.
Your reality versus what you think you should be doing. And like, even the question of like, who put this on me? Huge. Yeah. There are times where I'll be driving for something. I'm like, why? Like, I don't even, why? Like, this has never been a characteristic of mine. Yeah, exactly. Time out. Like, what is going on here? Why am I stressing about this, blah, blah, blah? Like, that's not true to who I am, for example. Yeah.
I think those moments are so important. Like when you're like, wait, what? This isn't me. If you can catch yourself in those moments and be like, wait, this is so not what I want right now. And then where is this coming from? Where is the, and usually it's when you're like for me, it's when I'm comparing myself. It's like,
agreed. Me too. 100%.
Or a colleague or a friend has gotten the next big thing or bought a house. And like, oh my God, panic.
I need a house. I need like 6 rooms. Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, why? Like,
That's a very good point. Like, in just so many things, like comparison and then just random goals put on you by others. Identify your own goals.
Yes. And stick to them.
Yeah. Okay. Last thing, I usually end off. This has been really good. I like hearing your thoughts on career and your thoughts on how you got to your career. A lot of times we're talking about other people's careers in our work. So it's always good to hear from you personally. And you do coaching. So if anybody wants to get Robyn's services, you can get Robyn services. I will tag all the things for people to know. But I usually end off every episode with a question from the guest to me.
Oh.
Yes, you get to ask me a question. One question only. I was going to tell you this before, I totally forgot.
I gotta think for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I think, on the topic of today, we talked a little bit at the beginning about, the word ambition, and what my concept and understanding and lack of connection in my case to the word ambitious. And you said you don't necessarily think of yourself as ambitious either. Mm-hmm. So if you don't think of yourself as ambitious, when you think about, life and career, because I don't think you can just be ambitious in your career. That's all of who you are as yourself. Mm-hmm. How would you describe yourself in one word if ambitious wasn't it?
Ooh, that's a good question. So people have described me as ambitious. I don't know why. I truly, truly do not understand why. I wouldn't consider myself ambitious in any way. And the reason I say that is because, like you were saying, you think of ambitious people as people who are like, it's never enough. And you're always just, I have looked at the word ambition as it's never enough, always going for the next thing. I can't sit still with what I have. And I don't want to have that label. A lot of times too, ambition is looked as the person who is willingly going to step on the person next to them to get ahead. And that's not necessarily the case. I'm sure if I Googled the definition of ambitious, that would not be the definition, but it's been assigned to a lot of white men, and let's be real, is like that, those characteristics, and I don't want to have those characteristics. So I would describe myself as purpose-driven. It's a very, very cliche word, and it's all of that kind of stuff, but I know that there have been times when, and you know this, like from supervising me, there were so many things I'm like, I don't get the why behind this. So I'm having a hard time hopping onto this idea. But the minute I understand the why behind something and the purpose, I will work very hard to do it. And then there have been times I've done things because I'm just like, well, you're my boss and I have to do this. And I don't get the why. So I'm going to yell the whole time about the fact that I don't get the why. But for me, I'm very much why driven. Like if I know why I'm doing something, it's so much easier for me to flow along with it. So whether that's in my, whether that's in like work or in like the jobs that I search for, or in like every time, sometimes I've applied for jobs that I didn't really love, but I saw the paycheck, like the amount they'd be paying. I'm like, ooh, that's going to be nice for my rent. But then I'm like, actually, why am I like, would I like this job? Yeah, hold on a second, ma'am. Or like even in my relationship with, like, if I think about my relationship with Will, like the why, like I had a hard time before we started dating, being like, why do you want to date me? And why do I want to date you? Or like, why do I want to move to Toronto? Why do I want to earn this amount of money?
Why?
Like literally, it was one of those. Because he'd be like, I saw you in my future. I'm like, what? How? Why? Tell me all the things. Yeah, so I'm very purpose-driven and like impact-driven. That's how I describe myself. I just happen to also be seen as always wanting to be better in my purpose and my impact and all of that. So ambition becomes the word people use.
I have one more question if you have time.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to get in there. And I didn't even wait for you to say, okay, I'm just going to ask. Being purpose-driven, what is your purpose? You, Yo-Yo, what is your purpose in life and the world?
Very good question. So we luckily have had the chance to do strengths finders. And my top strengths are always ones that are in the people aspect of things. One, it might be because I'm a people pleaser. That's a problem I need to go to therapy for. So I'll put that on the side.
We're gonna put that on the shelf, yeah.
We'll sit on a couch for that one. But people driven, I'm very, very people driven. So a lot of my top strengths are like harmonizer, includer, communicator, like all of those like people focused things. And so if I think about my purpose, I like the work we do because I see the impact it has, for example, on our students. And I've always thought about, whenever I moved around growing up, there were always these people who were there to welcome us or to make our experience better. And so when I've looked at the jobs that I've done that have made me feel the most fulfilled, it's when I can see the impact that I'll have, like right now, on students, and in their career confidence, their career journey, their feeling of having networks, and in developing oneself. And so I used to want to be a psychologist for that reason, is I want to help people just kind of get to the best that they can be, in whatever way that shows up. In an organization, that can show up in talent development or things like that. Within what we do now, it can show up in like student coaching, things like that, or even the work I do now with employers. For me, my drive to always engage with the employers, because I wouldn't consider myself a business development person, is that I want to know what I can do to make your experience getting the best talent out there. So in my personal life, that shows up in community. I think I had told you this, like, I think Vancouver is an extremely lonely place. So I always want to do what I can to connect people, or to have people feel like they have a community, they have a home. At least with me, you always have a home. We might not be best friends, but I want you to feel like you always have a home with me. Home is very, the feeling of safe home is very important to me. So whether that's in a person or in a place, I want to try my best to provide that. So that was a very long-winded way to say, the safe home thing, personally and professionally and things like that, very much drives me.
People and community. People
and community. Look at that. You summarize my 5-minute elevator pitch into the actual 30 seconds it should be. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for answering my second question.
Of course. Like I think only one other person has ever asked for a second question. So I like y'all. So I give you the chance to do it. But yeah, thank you so much, Robyn, for joining me today. I appreciate it. I know that you have, it's now 9:00 in Vancouver, so early in the day. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate chatting to you all the time. You are my unofficial official life coach. So this is a good conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. This was fun. I appreciate it.